Yes.
You don't let it pass you by. It's really that simple. Are you minding your mental when life gets loud and nothing seems as simple? Make sure you're minding your mental. Focus on where you're headed, not just what you've been through. Nobody knows you like you do. And God will help to see you through. Be the first one to give yourself a helping hand. Just take a chance by minding your mental. Get behind that wheel and take control. You only have one life, don't let it pass you by. It's really that simple. Let's start by minding the mental.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. This is Reverend Benita Weathers. I hope that you all have had a wonderful week, as always. And I pray that everybody is taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, taking care of your spirit. There's a lot going on in this world right now that would cause us sometimes to just could if we, could make us just sort of lose control, of our mind. And so I want everyone to every day mind the mental every day, because every day there's something, right? And so I am, happy to be here and happy to be still doing Mind the Mental Mondays. I believe this is episode 103, if I'm not mistaken. And so we've come a long ways since the first episode, and we've got a long ways to go. But I'm excited every time I get an opportunity to come in, before you and bring a new message. So tonight I want to talk about the power of intentional connection. So a couple of weeks ago, um, I don't know, I just sort of had this urging, this like feeling to want to connect with some of my sister friends. And something said, well, it's not going to happen by osmosis, right? It's not just going to happen out of nowhere. Like if this intentional connection is something that you want, you're going to have to what? Intentionally make it happen, right? So I contacted them, I texted them and was like, "Hey, I'm really feeling like I need some like some sister time, some sister girl time with the two of them." And they texted me back and they both said, "I need the same thing. Yes, let's do it." Right? And so I was very excited and we made that happen. We were able to get together for I don't know, what do you call a meal at like 3 o'clock? It's like, or 4 o'clock. It's like too early to be dinner and too late to be lunch. In the morning you have brunch, right? But what do you call it in between lunch and dinner? I don't know. Whatever you call that, that's what we had. Anyway, what we really had, more than the meal, just sharing a meal together was just fellowship. We are all sort of what I would refer to as sort of like-minded women who are have some things that we're wanting to do, things that we want to accomplish, and we are, have made it our goal to be each other's, accountability partners. And I need that. I have that. I have my team who are my accountability partners. So I'm just, and I have my girls that are like, accountability partners as well to help me to sort of stay on track. But there was something I thought in that. I thought that there was a message in that because I think that all too often we don't make intentional connection. And sometimes we get so busy with, the stuff of life that we, when things sort of happen in our lives and things sort of come up in our lives where we really need that connection, where that connection could really make or break us, or when we feel like we're about to break, but that connection could help to bring some healing or bring some resolve, rather than reaching out for that connection, what we do is shut down. We shut down and we go into ourselves and we remove ourselves from others. And I think that there are times for both, right? I think that there's a time where we need to sort of separate and disconnect from others and kind of get into ourselves in order to grow, in order to really look at who we are, how we are, in order to intentionally sort of get to know ourselves better, get in tune with our Savior, get in tune with our Creator, with our Lord, get in tune with nature. Sometimes we need alone time. But then there are some times where being alone is not really the best answer for what you need. Sometimes you need to open up yourself to being with others. And, it has to be people that you trust, that you can have conversations with and maybe even talk about things that you really feel like you need to talk about, but you know, you you wouldn't talk about them with any and everybody, right? Because any and everybody don't, sometimes people just don't need to know certain things, right? But then there are things that you really do need to just get off your chest and share. And so it has to be people that you trust, will hold their confidence in you. It's important to have a confidant, to have a village, to have people that when you get that urging to reach out, that you feel like if you reach out to them, they will receive you, right? So, in this case, so one of the things that I feel about myself is I have I feel like I have a difficult time cultivating relationships. Um, Now, of course, there are people that I have cultivated relationships with, like, my husband, my children, my siblings, those my family who are like my close family, you know. But in terms of like girlfriends, I have that has always been just a hard thing for me to do. Is to like cultivate good relationships with other women. And, I'm in a sorority. There are, women that I connect with and that, we, have similar things in common. I get along with, but it doesn't necessarily end up in the kind of like give and take, kind of relationship that sometimes I'm looking for in my sisters. But there are a few. that I do have and that I have found. And, it's one of those things where I can either, sort of not reach out, not um have that intentionality behind cultivating the relationships that we have. Or, I can and in that case, it'll cause me to sort of just go inward, and maybe not, gain the kind of relationship that I'm looking for. And then there are some cases where, it's like you feel like you're the only one reaching out. Um, and what I've learned about that is to sort of utilize the spirit of like discernment in those cases, because some cases people are not reaching out because they genuinely don't really want a relationship with you. They genuinely don't care, or they just, you're just not it for them. They don't fit your vibe or whatever the case might be. But then there are other cases where people really are just having stuff going on in their own lives. Like they really have issues and challenges that they are in the midst of. And while they might not open up and tell you about it, because a lot of times they just feel like everybody's got their own issues and they got their own problems to deal with. They don't want to deal with mine too. So I'm just going to just not say anything. And one of the things that came out of my intentional connection yesterday was that we can all benefit from, if we're going through something, um, we can benefit from sharing that and having others sort of, you know, be that sort of cushion for you. But we can also share positive things that we're doing, good things that are happening, and then we can be an inspiration to one another and we can celebrate each other. So, they were kind of like, don't feel like that. Like, don't feel like you're going to, like, if you're actually going through something that, it's going to, that we don't want to hear about it or anything like that. And we all need to kind of get it together, and understand that when you find that connection that you can feel feel comfortable sharing with someone else, whether you're sharing something sort of negative that you might be going through, or whether you're sharing positive things, or a combination of both, to hang on to those relationships, and not only hang on to them, but grow them. And when you get to a place where if you get to a place where you feel like you're the only one that's sort of um, being intentional about it, that's what your friends are for. Call them out on it and let them know, like, listen, I feel like what do you ask them, what do you feel about this relationship? Because I feel like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like I'm always the one that's checking. I'm always the one checking in. I'm always the one calling to say, hey, let's get together. And I'm not getting the reciprocal of that. So is it that, just be honest with me? Like, is it that you just don't really want us to have that kind of connection, or is it that life is really life in? And if that's the case, then listen, that's what we're here for. We're here to support one another. And to help each other kind of get through some of the challenges that we might be having in life. Um, so that we're not feeling like we are doing it alone. So, nobody should feel like they're doing life alone. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is just the reason that human connection is important. Like, we were created to be connected to one another. And whether we know it or not, we all of us all of us on this planet are connected. We are all using all the resources on this planet, which God put here before He even created us. He created all those resources for everybody who is occupying this earth. We are all connected, and so it is all of our responsibility to like take care of the earth. It's all of our responsibility to try to use less emissions and to, use less plastic and to recycle and all of the things that will help to keep the earth nourished. We were created to be stewards of this earth, all of us, everybody on the planet. And so when we don't realize that we're connected, and when we have like hatred for people literally for because their skin is a different color. Like, how silly is that? Like, that's really silly, right? Like, you'd rather, sort of, what is this the saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face. Like, you'd rather do your own self-harm so that other people can be harmed. Like, none of it really makes sense, right? But the point is that all of humanity is connected. Whether we like it or not, whether we want to be or not, it is. It is a fact. We need each other. And so those who are closest to us, those who we know really care about us, who really want the best for us, those are the people that we need to be intentional about enhancing our connections with. And the most painful thing about that sometimes is that the people that you think would be the ones, sometimes that's not always your family members. There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother, right? That's what the word of God tells us. There's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Oh, sometimes it's not, it's going to be, you're going to think that it's going to be family members. And sometimes it's not going to be family members. You might think that it should be people who smile in your face all the time and who are always patting you on the back and saying wonderful things about you in front of your face. But they could be the very ones who, behind closed doors, are saying something completely different. So you have to be discerning in all of it, right? Discernment is important, but connection is important as well. And I feel like society has sort of in these later years, things have started to be over the years, and I think with intention, honestly, intentionally set up to separate us. Like way back in the day, the thing used to be, you sit on your front porch or your front stoop, wherever you're from, however you say it, wherever you're from. And everybody would be out front. Everybody be on the porch and neighbors would exchange and be talking to each other. And, the kids would be running up and down the street and that sort of thing. And then we started to see a shift. We started seeing a shift from neighbors being on their front porches and really connecting and communing with each other to now everybody's like in the backyard. And in the backyard, a lot of people have these big, fences so that it can be private. So we have become less interdependent. Like and then when the pandemic hit, and we had to sort of lose connection with one another, it just got worse. And people in that year got used to it, right? We got used to doing everything over Zoom. We got used to not going out, not, connecting with other people. It became like, oh, this is what we've become used to. Now, we're losing more human connection because now we have like robots that are doing the jobs that humans used to do. So now, and I'm guilty of this too, when I go to the supermarket, I'm going to the self-checkout line. Why? Because somewhere in my head, I have it in my head that I can do it faster, right? And I can get out because I just want to get in and get out. I don't want to be standing there. I don't want to hold a conversation with the cashier. I don't want to do that. But it's important that we do that, right? Because even in those kinds of exchanges, there's human connection. Um, and you just never know. Somebody, who is working their job could be having a really hard day, and you could be that one who brings some joy to them. Like we need each other, whether we know each other personally or not, we need each other. But now most grocery stores, like the grocery store in my neighborhood went from having one section of self-checkout to two sections of self-checkout. There's still a few with where they have cashiers, but most of the time there's a cashier just standing up there like with nothing to do because nobody's going to their line. And then every once in a while, I will go to if they're standing around and looking bored. I'll be like, "Oh, you look bored. You look like you need something to do." So here you go, But it's if we're not careful, we are going to completely lose human connection in this world, and we can see already what is happening in that. We grew up in an era, I grew up in an era where, you went outside and played and, you met the other kids in the neighborhood and you had fun and you talked to each other. Now the generations that are coming in now, everything is like on the phone. They don't even know how to do eye connection. They are so used to being in this position all the time and communicating this way. They have a really hard time verbally communicating with their peers. Everything is through text message and everything that they get is through social media. And they don't have to make any kind of connection. And it's really kind of scary to me. What do y'all think about that? Just let me know what you think. Because I just feel like we can make good use of the technology that's out here, but without like human connection, we won't even really know how to program the technology to be able to connect with in a human way that it needs to. I don't know about y'all, but like I can't stand calling businesses and it's some robot on the phone and then and it's like I'm yelling at it, but it can't understand what I'm talking about. It only understands whatever it was programmed to understand. And so I'm like, get me a human. Get me a human. You have to say that like a gazillion times. Like, okay, I'll get somebody, but in order to get somebody, I need to know blah blah blah. And it's like just if you just get me a human, I can say all of that to the human, and the human can understand what I'm talking about. It's just it's really annoying, And so I really want us to understand that our mental health can really be directly related to our connection with humanity, with others in our world. And so that's why it's important for us to have empathy for one another. That's why it's important for us to hold each other up, to pray for one another and to check on each other, and see how each other is doing and doing that with intention. Because if we lose that connection, I just feel like, we'll just kind of shrivel up in a corner somewhere, without that connection. So, um, humans are not wired to be in isolation. That's why when people are placed in solitary confinement in the prison system, That's why it wrecks their mind, because we are meant to be connected as human beings. Um, it's the way that we are able to thrive, when we are able to share our emotions with one another, when we're able to communicate our feelings with one another, and we're able to then take in what somebody, somebody else's care and concern for us. It makes us feel a certain kind of way, and so it regulates our emotions. There have been studies that have been done with infants, that infants that get that, are placed skin to skin on their parent, and who get that, more often than not, fare better than the ones who have parents that aren't connected, that don't have that touch. Even in marriages, even in relationships, it is important to have physical touch with your partner. It's important that you hug one another, and it doesn't always have to be sexual. It can be just, you know holding hands, um you know holding each other around the waist as you take a walk, um just a touch. I like to, when my husband is sitting in his recliner and I walk by him, I just, it's like I just want to touch his head. I just touch his head, I just kind of rub his head. He's got a baldy these days, and I actually like it. So and I just like touching it, you know. So I mean, so even little things like that, can help you, it does something for you to have that human touch. It makes you feel safe in your relationships. It can help calm stress and anxiety sometimes when I'm feeling stressed, or sometimes, I will, like, if my husband is feeling stressed, I can see it. I can tell, I can feel it, and even. And, so there's times that he's, I can tell he's stressed out and he's got a lot on his mind. And I'll just grab his hand, I'll just pull him toward me and just hold him, just for a few minutes, and that helps to sort of bring down that stress and anxiety. And it's vice versa. He does that for me too. Sometimes he'll notice that I'm like, I'm going through something up here, and he'll just bring me in and just hold me. And it's just like, it does it, it might not remove the thing that I'm going through, but it does help to sort of calm and relieve me, for a few moments. Um, and sometimes, when you're connected, you feel seen and you feel heard. And when you feel seen and when you feel heard, it does something, for you. It kind of reduces that feeling of overwhelm that you might have when you feel like you're not seen and you're not heard. Um, Sometimes, having conversations can help to interrupt or disrupt negative thoughts that you're having. And that's one of my friends said yesterday. She said, you know, if you talk to us about, some of the things you're going through, that's going to give us a break from the stuff that we're going through. So, it was that conversation of, I know you feel like everybody else is going through their own stuff, and you don't want to, put yourself on other people, but sometimes when you're telling people that the stuff that you're going through, it helps to, at least for a moment, kind of take their mind off of the stuff that they're going through, right? And it makes them feel like, oh, all right, everybody's going through something. So we have that connection too. Everybody is going through some stuff. It doesn't mean that we're, that connection is going to remove the stuff that we're going through, but it helps to know that you're not alone in it, if that makes sense. So The other thing is that when you isolate yourself, isolation actually makes you think on the struggles even more. It just it actually exacerbates the struggle in your head because now you're left to your own thoughts and you're left to your stinking thinking and you're left to, just re rehearsing the same things over and over and over in your mind and introducing new toxic thoughts in your mind. And so it feels heavier. When you're going through hard times, it makes it feel heavier when you're going through those hard times alone. So so it sort of helps you along the way. Sometimes silence can feed the fear, right? Sometimes silence is good, right? There's times where you just want to just kind of be silent and not letting anything in and sometimes dumping stuff out, kind of emptying your mind of the toxicity. But then there are times where when you're just silent and when you're off isolated and you're off to yourself, you start to think more on the thing that's scaring you or the thing that's bothering you or the thing that is holding you hostage in the moment. And whereas when you are connected to other people, it can sort of help relieve you of that. Um and it also, when you're disconnected, it can also lead to burnout because you don't have anywhere to put whatever it is that you're going through except internally, and that's where you start to implode. That's where you start to, just stack up the stuff that's going on in your mind, and when you're doing that in isolation, it can really cause you to slump into a deep depression, um, and even worse. So, we want to make sure that we find those connections that we can trust, that we know will, mean us good, that doesn't mean us harm. Um, and then we need to intentionally, do the things that will help grow those connections. And so, my friends from yesterday, one of the things that we did was we didn't wait. We didn't wait to say when we're going to get together the next time. While we were there, because all of us are busy, while we were there, we put it on the calendar. And and the next time it's not like a going out, to eat. It is literally a 45-minute check-in. Like we just gonna get on Zoom for 45 minutes and check in. Like, hey, what kind of progress are you making with the things that we're trying to make progress on? That sort of thing. Just a check-in. It doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be, it could just be a quick call. It doesn't even have to be a Zoom call. It could just be a quick, hey, just checking in. How you doing? Or a quick text message. Hey, just checking in. Just want to see how you're doing. And and that can and then that the response from that lets you know that you are connected. It doesn't even have to be in person all the time, but definitely in person sometimes because you need those hugs, you know. Well, at least I do. I'm a hugger, so I always have to make sure that other people, because my natural inclination is to go in for a hug, but I have to, I've had those times where I've gone in for a hug and the person is tensed up, and it's like, I try to respect people's boundaries because not everybody is a hugger like me. So I try to respect those boundaries. But with somebody that you're connected with, maybe you will accept a hug from them, and sometimes you need it. You need that hug. Um, Connection also strengthens resilience. It helps when you have connections that you can be encouraged. Um, um, uh, my pastor, who is also my husband, happens to be my husband, is doing a sermon series called Be Encouraged. And when I tell you like the breakthrough that happened um, yesterday in church, because there are so many people who just need to be encouraged. There are people that are going through some stuff and they might not say it, but they're going through some stuff and they need to be able to sort of break. They need somebody that's going to stand there and hold their hand and pray with them as they're going through a tough time. They need somebody that they can feel like they can just cry and not be judged by their tears, that they can just break down and bawl cry if they need to. Everybody needs that. Because, and again, especially with just all the stuff, and I know I've said it before, but with all the stuff happening in the world, on top of things that could be happening in your personal life, it can be a rough, rough road. And so it's important to just really find that connection. Um, and the other thing that I want to talk about in terms of intentional connection is not only intentional connection with other humans, but intentional connection with your creator. Um, when I don't connect with God on a daily basis, when I don't, start my day off in prayer and scripture and meditation, the rest of my day is completely different. So I want to really encourage you, those of you who subscribe to faith, and again, for me, it's Christian faith. I lean on my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and having that connection with Him, having that connection, with the Holy Spirit is everything, because if you don't have that spiritual connection, it's much more difficult for you to discern certain spirits in others. And as you are practicing intentional connection with others, you need that connection with the Holy Spirit so that you can discern if this is somebody that you really need to be connected to. Because we don't need to be connected to everybody. You don't have to have a gazillion intentional connections, right? And intentional connections are those it can be one person. Um, it could be your spouse. Hopefully you have an intentional connection with your spouse. But sometimes you need other connections outside of your spouse. You might need but it doesn't have to be a gazillion people. It could just be one or two people that have your back, that that they are praying for you, just like you're praying for them, that will have your back, in a bad situation, that they got you. Um, so in order to be discerning, you have to have that spiritual connection first. So even before that intentional connection with some other human, make sure you have an intentional connection with your creator, who can then point you in the right direction to, if is this somebody who I need to have an intentional connection with. And God will lead you. He will guide you to the right people to have a connection with. So don't just be willy-nilly with this, with this intentional connection. Like, be intentional, but also be intentionally discerning. You hear me? Put in the chat, say, I hear you. If you hear me, put in the comments, I hear you. Okay? I hope you hear me. This is not meant for every connection. All right. All right. So, intentional connection means being purposeful about building and maintaining relationships. That's what intentional connection is all about. So once you have had that, you have that intentional connection with your creator, who can then lead you to whomever in the season of life you're in now. Because guess what? The other thing about it is intentional connections will often change. There are connections that I've had in other seasons of my life that just aren't there now. And it's not like a thing of, oh, I don't get along with the person or I don't like the person or anything like, or we had a falling out or anything like that. It's just that our seasons have changed for both of us. And in this season, these are my intentional connections. And that's okay, right? It's okay that your intentional connections might change over seasons. But once you find that intentional connection, you have to be purposeful in maintaining and growing those relationships. Um, Showing up consistently and not just conveniently. That's not a good connection. Don't be that kind of person that you only show up when it's convenient for you. Because sometimes, when your intentional connection needs you, it's not going to be the time that's convenient for you. But you show up. You show up anyway. It's not convenient, but show up because you want the reciprocal, right? You want somebody to show up for you, so show up for them. Now, if you are always the only one showing up, discernment should say something to you about that. And it's okay to cut the connection. Sometimes we got to unplug some connections. That's just a fact. Sometimes we got to unplug certain connections. And that too is okay. So, I'm not saying to be out here just intentionally connecting with anybody, lottie dottie and everybody. That's not what I'm saying. Saying be intentional to grow those relationships and those connections that are of a mutual benefit, and that can help you as you're kind of going through whatever the things you might be going through in life. All right. So here are some practical ways to create intentional connection. And this first one is something that my husband says all of the time, and it is something that he raised our children with. And it is something that he said to our leaders in our leadership training class at the church yesterday that he brought out. Be proactive and not reactive, right? Don't wait for something to happen, or don't wait thinking that something is going to be willy-nilly. Just like when I was having that feeling of, I really want to connect with these ladies. And it was these two ladies in particular. I wanted to connect with them. But that wouldn't have happened had I just sort of not reached out to them to say, this is how I'm feeling. They wouldn't have reached back to say, hey, I'm feeling the same way. Like, because in all of us, we're kind of like, kind of doing our own thing in our own little silos. And it's like, I don't want to I want to come out of the silo. I kind of want to connect. Um, So be proactive, don't necessarily wait for somebody else to reach out. You reach out. But again, you get to a place where it's you the only one that's reaching out after a few times, then again, discernment will let you know what to do in that situation. Either have a conversation or cut the connection, or both. Have a conversation first, and then based on the conversation, you may need to cut the connection. All right, so create consistent touch points. This is something that we did. It was like, okay, we're not gonna wait. We're not going to leave this restaurant and go our separate ways thinking that okay somebody because then somebody's got to remember to text and remind, hey, we're supposed to get together again, right? So create those check-ins, and it could be however often you need. Now, not necessarily have to be every month, every week. Doesn't have to be every day, every week. It could be every month. It could be quarterly. It just depends on you and in your connection, right? It depends on the relationship, how often you want to create touch points, but be intentional about creating touch points where you're going to connect and you're going to check on one another. Be vulnerable. Share your truth, unapologetically. Um, it's hard. It's hard for me to connect. I have a difficult time connecting with people. I do. I know that about myself. Um, and it's something that I'm really trying to work on because and I think it comes just from childhood. I didn't really connect with a lot of people in childhood. Um, and so for a variety of reasons, right? So it's one of those things that I have to kind of come out of my shell sometimes and be intentional to connect. Um, and when I do that, more often than not, the connections work. Um, so and just be authentic and be vulnerable sometimes in cases where you feel safe to do so. Um, Show up in difficult moments. Somebody's having a difficult time and you know they're having a difficult time. Like, check in. Even if you don't know, but you know something's different, like you haven't heard from them, you is in their behavior is has changed, something is different about them. You know, don't just disappear. Reach out to see how they're doing. Hopefully they will do the same for you. Um, Join or build community spaces. So if you belong to a church and maybe you want to create some kind of a small group that meets however often they meet, that connects on something on similar things, support groups, book clubs, all those types of things, workshops. Create your own circle. If one doesn't already exist, as you're going out and meeting people, if somebody that you really connect with, build on that connection. And it might not be the person that you've known for 30 years. It might be the person you've known for 3 months who ends up being the connection that you need. So, some barriers to connection are fear of rejection. We've talked about that a lot. A lot of times we fear being rejected, past hurt or betrayal. Somebody else betrayed us before. We don't want to open ourselves up to that happening again. I mean, that's real, right? Keep it a buck. That's a real thing. So if you've been hurt before, you're not looking for that pain again. And so you might decide, you know what, I don't even want to put myself out there, for that to happen. But, sometimes it's important to try to come out of that and recognize that, okay, that person did that, but that doesn't mean that this person is. They're two different people. You can't sort of base a new person that you're in a relationship with on something that other people did. Everybody deserves an opportunity to show who they are. Um, and you never know what you might gain out of that relationship. But if you cut yourself off because you're afraid of being rejected or you're afraid that this person is going to do to me what that person did, then you lose out on other opportunities that can help propel you even, higher in the things that you're trying to do in life. So don't cut yourself off. You know, Start small, one person at a time. Allow yourself opportunity to heal from those past relationships that hurt you, and then open yourself up, to receiving new relationships, new friendships. So, here are some reflection questions for you, and write them down. Just reflect on them over the course of the week. Who do you feel safe with, but you haven't reached out to them lately? Who do you feel safe with, but you haven't reached out to them lately? Two, where have you been isolating yourself? Think about it. Where and in what situations have caused you to withdraw and to isolate? And then what is one intentional step you can take this week to connect? So, here's your challenge. Reach out to one person this week. One. Not because you need something, because we all know that we all have people that'll call you when they need something, right? Or sometimes we might be that person, like, and I hate that. There are times where I'll think of something, and I'll think of a person that could really help me in something, but it's like I haven't talked to them in forever, and then what I'm going to just reach out now, 3 years later because I need something. I don't like it. That's tacky. Um, so reach out to one person, not because you need something, but because you value the connection. Think of that one person that you value the connection with them. You feel safe with them. Maybe you haven't talked to them in a little bit. Reach out, give them a call, see how they're doing. And then just see what comes up from that. All right. All right. So there is power in connection. There is power to help you feel better about yourself. There's power to be encouraged and to encourage others. There is power to get things off your chest and to also help others get things off their chest. There is power in holding, touching, hugging, having a physical touch. There is power in connection. And so I want each and every one of you to realize that. And if you are in a space right now where you find that you have just disconnected from everybody, and that you have started to isolate yourself, and that you started to find yourself in a corner curled up in a ball, I want you to sort of get to the root of where is that coming from, and then how can you fix it? Who's that one person that you can call that you feel like you can be vulnerable with? And then that one person, it might be a therapist. It might not be a friend, right? It might be a therapist that can help you get to the root causes of why you're isolating yourself. And when you come out of that, and when you've gained some healing from that, get reach out to that one person that you value the connection, that you just haven't spoken with in a while. And who knows what can grow from that. But whatever can grow from it, you have to be intentional about caring for the relationship. All right. So that's it for Monumental Monday tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for for showing up. And I hope that this episode has been beneficial to you. If you would like to work with me as a coach, as a life coach, I am a certified life coach, and if you're looking to figure out ways to make connections, if you have found yourself isolated, and you want to try to discover ways that might be best for you, specifically you, to make connections with others, please reach out to me. My information is on all of my social media handles. You can inbox me, and I'll get back to you. But reach out. I can be a connection for you too. All right. All right. So again, thanks for tuning in. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Next Monday, we'll be back again on Mind the Mental Monday. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
Are you minding your mental when life gets loud and nothing seems as simple? Make sure you're minding your mental. Focus on where you're headed, not just what you've been through. Nobody knows you like you do, and God will help to see you through. Be the first one to give yourself a helping hand. Just take a chance by minding your